Okay, in our next section that we're not going to actually read, it's the next morning, and Faith is talking to her mom about the dog, and they kind of create a plan as to what to do to help the dog, who we will learn later is his name is Teddy. And then later in that morning, um, Faith meets Midge. Now, Midge is her best friend. She's a bit younger than Faith, but she's also very street smart because she's been raised pretty much on the street. She and her mom spend a lot of time in shelters and homeless facilities. So they have become best friends. And in the book, which again we won't get into, there's quite a bit of background as to how Midge and Faith meet. But I'll leave that for those of you who decide they want to purchase the book or get the book from the library and read about that. So now we're going to pick it up with Faith and Midge finding out that the problem they're dealing with is much bigger than they anticipated. So, Ben, take it away.
Before I read again, the story really is great with all the little extra details that we're not getting into here. So you owe it to yourself to read it or listen to it. It's on Audible, or you can get the Kindle also. So Faith and Midge exited the subway station with only a short walk to the Mega Dollar Store where Faith had first met the dog. They stood outside for a few minutes and watched as people entered and left the store. Most of them left with a plastic bag with Mega Dollar imprinted on them. "Looks like you're doing a good business," Midge commented. "Looks like they're doing a good business." "Yeah, but I don't see or hear any dog," Faith replied. "Well, let's go inside and see what we can learn." She started to open the door, then stopped and turned back to her little friend. "Remember your promise to me." "I know, no stealing," Midge replied with an innocent smile. "I'm way over that now that I have you as my friend." "Good, let's go." The two girls entered the store and walked around the aisles filled with cheap items of every description. They spent a little longer in the toy section, but finally walked away empty-handed. After all, they weren't on a shopping trip, but a fact-finding mission. After several minutes, Faith leaned over to Midge and whispered, "I need to buy something, so I'll have an excuse to go to the checkout. Any suggestions?" Midge thought for a moment, then replied, "Food." She pointed to a row of cookies and other junk food. "There." "I should have known," Faith said, chuckling. "You are a bottomless pit." Midge nodded. "Street smart lesson one for today. You never know where your next meal is coming from, so eat whenever you're given the opportunity." "Sound advice," Faith replied as they walked over to the food aisle. "Pick an item for yourself and I'll pick one." Midge selected a small box of chocolate chip cookies. Faith looked for something healthy, but the best she could do was chocolate-covered raisins. So she picked up a box, and they headed over to the checkout counter. As they stood in line, Faith studied the person behind the checkout counter. He was a tall man with facial hair beyond a 5 o'clock shadow, but a little less than a full beard. His olive-colored skin suggested he was of Mid-Eastern descent. He wore a blue cap and a white shirt with a name tag that read Vito Cox, and under that, store manager. Good, Faith thought. He should know all about the mystery dog. She started to reach into her fanny pack to pull out her money, then thought better of it. She needed a little time to talk to Vito. "When it's your turn, drop your cookies," she whispered to Midge, who nodded back. As they moved up to the register, Faith smiled warmly to the cashier, who returned her smile. "Snack time, huh?" Vito said. "Yeah, you have quite a good selection," Faith replied as she placed her item down on the counter, and on cue, Midge dropped hers on the floor. "Sorry, my friend is a little clumsy." "No problem. Why don't you just give me that one and you go get another one for the and you go get another one, little girl." Midge hesitated for a moment. Then, seeing Faith nod yes, she handed the package of cookies to Vito and started running back to the snack area. "Walk, don't run," Faith yelled after her, then turned back to Vito. I walked by your store the other night and thought I heard a dog. Was I mistaken? Oh, no, that's Teddy. He's our guard dog. I keep him in the back during the day so he won't scare the customers away. So, is he mean? Faith asked. Vito started to nod, then stopped and leaned over the counter to whisper to her. Well, to tell you the truth, he's a bit unpredictable. Sometimes he's a mushball. Mushball? Yeah, very loving, but at other times, well, like I said, unpredictable. But Ivory said he got him at a good price, so I guess it's a case of getting what you paid for. Who's Ivory? Faith asked, although she already knew the answer, but wanted to confirm what Midge had told her. He's the man, Vito replied, as Midge finally returned and placed her items on the counter to be checked out. The man? Faith asked. You know, like the man. No? Okay, never mind. He's my boss. He owns this store along with a bunch of other ones. And are there other dogs like Teddy? Oh, yeah, Vito replied. Dozens around in this area, maybe 100 or more. Of course, Ivory doesn't own all the properties, but other owners have adopted the practice of protecting them with security dogs. Really? The news was hard for Faith to hear. To think that there were that many dogs being mistreated sent a shiver of anguish to course through her body. Could I ask you one other question? Do you sell dog food here? Sure do, Vito replied and pointed towards the rear of the store. We don't have as large a selection as a regular grocery store, but you'll find both dry and canned food on aisle 12. Great. If I buy a few cans, will you feed it to Teddy? Vito thought about it a moment before replying. Well, yes, I guess so. As long as I can prove I didn't pull it from the stock myself. Ivory has made it very clear what would happen to me if I did that. Faith finished checking out, then went back to fetch a couple of cans of dog food. She read the handwritten sign, 3 cans for the price of 2, so she picked up 3 cans and cradled them in one arm. As she pulled the money from her pocket, she thought about the beautiful flute she had her eye on. That's okay, she thought. I'll keep saving for it, but living things are more important than inanimate objects. Even the flute she'd longed to own ever since she heard her teacher playing one. No, today was about helping Teddy, her first junkyard dog. Faith returned to the register to pay for the food. Good choice, Vito said as he checked her out for the second time. That's a much better food than what Ivory makes me feed him. Speaking of feeding, Faith said, as she spoke, she tried to convey to Vito a warm, loving energy in his direction. She wasn't sure if her empathic powers worked that way, but she'd been experimenting with it of late and figured this was as good a time to give it a try. I'd really like to meet Teddy in person. Could we go back and let him try the food? Well, I'm the only one working in the store at the moment. My help is late coming in, Vito replied. That's okay, Faith said. I'm really good with animals. I'm sure Teddy and I will get along, especially since I come bearing the gift of food. Please? She's right, Midge chimed in. She's like a dog whisperer. I've never seen anything like it. Sorry, no can do, Vito replied. Teddy is, well, like I said, he's unpredictable. Sometimes he's well behaved, and at other times he's not. It's like his past catches up with him, and he's back in the... Back where? Faith asked. Listen, wait until my employee comes in, Vito said, ignoring her question. Then I'll take you back and you can feed him. That's the best I can do. Faith opened her mouth to object, but then felt Vito's resoluteness and decided not to push it. Okay, we'll wait. The 2 girls wandered around the store for another 10 minutes until Vito called to them. Okay, let's go see Teddy, he said, and the 3 of them walked back to the rear of the building. I keep him in the back room, where he won't get himself in trouble, Vito explained. Let me go in first. He knows me and is usually well behaved with me. He knows that I'm the one that feeds him. Faith and Midge nodded. As they approached the last door, they heard a low growl. They looked at each other. Is that him? Faith asked. Yep, that's my boy, Vito replied. Then, turning to the door, he spoke in a soothing voice. It's okay, Teddy. It's me. I brought a couple of kids that want to meet you, so settle down. He turned back to them. Let me go in first. I keep him tied with a chain just in case someone wanders back here by mistake. Faith could feel the energy coming from Teddy, and it felt different today than it had the previous night. She turned to Midge and whispered, "He doesn't like being tied up." "I don't blame him," Midge whispered back. Midge whispered back, "I wouldn't like it either." A minute or two passed as they could just make out Vito talking to Teddy, and slowly the growling subsided. "Okay, you can come in now, but stay close to the door at first, just in case." Faith gulped. Suddenly meeting Teddy didn't seem like such a good idea. Then a thought came to her. She remembered the first time she'd encountered Teddy. He seemed to have really enjoyed her music. What was it that Chitra had told her? Something about music soothing the savage beast? It had worked before, so it was worth trying again. She passed the bag with the cans of dog food to Midge and took the recorder out of her backpack. "When I nod my head, slowly open the door," she instructed Midge. She started playing the same soft melody from the other night. As she did so, she once again sent loving vibes to the beast on the other side of the door. She continued to play for several seconds before finally nodding to Midge, who nodded back and swung the door open. As they entered, they saw the large pit bull with closely cropped ears and several old scars around his face and neck, sitting calmly returning their gaze, his head cocked to one side, as though listening intently. Next to him stood Vito with a smile on his face. "What do we have here? The Pied Piper?" Faith shrugged, but continued to play, studying Teddy more closely. "I can see every one of his ribs," she thought. "He really looks quite starved." The smell of dog poop and urine was almost overpowering as well. As she played, Teddy lay down with his front paws out in front of him. After she finished playing, she placed the recorder in her backpack and bent over to smile at Teddy. "Hey, boy, remember me?" Faith asked as she continued to send him loving vibes. Teddy sat up and wagged his stub of a tail. "Yep, he's a pit bull," Midge said. "Though most of the ones I've seen have a longer tail. Wonder what happened to his." "I don't know. Look at all those scars on his face and shoulders," Faith added. "Poor boy. Have you been fighting?" Teddy wagged his tail and whined. Faith took the bag from Midge and held it up. "Look what I have for you. Good food. Do you want some?" Teddy stood up, but didn't come over, obviously still nervous about his unexpected visitors. Vito pointed to one of the cabinets close to the door they'd entered. "You'll find his kibble in there. How about mixing about half a can with a cup of kibble? He's not used to eating so much rich food, so I don't want to upset his stomach. He makes a big enough mess to have to clean up as it is." Faith nodded, then walked over to the cabinet and opened the doors until she found the bag of dry food. "Would you bring me his bowl, please?" Vito picked up the two empty bowls and handed them to Midge, who took them to Faith. Handing one to her friend, she said, "I noticed a bathroom down the hall. I'll go and get him some water. I bet he's thirsty as well as hungry." "Good idea." Faith turned back to stare at Teddy. "Yeah, you can see every one of his ribs. He's not getting enough to eat." As she said this, she felt a strong reaction from Vito, but when she turned to him, he only shrugged and said, "I'm under strict orders as to how much to feed him. Ivory says that keeping him hungry makes him a better guard dog." Faith frowned, but didn't say anything. 3 cans of food would hardly be enough, she thought. "I'll ask Chitra if there's some way we can help him out on a more ongoing basis. It would be like adopting him without having to have him live with them." When Midge returned with the bowl of water, the 3 of them watched Teddy devour his food and then turned to them with a forlorn look on his face and a wag to his tail. "He wants more," Midge said. "I'm sure he does, but we better wait," Vito said. "He's not used to eating such rich food, and we don't want to upset his stomach. I'll continue to add the canned food to his diet. I need to get back to work tomorrow. I need to get back to work now." Before leaving, Midge and Faith took a couple of minutes to pat the large dog and tell him what a good puppy was. Once again, Teddy devoured the attention as much as he had the food. "He really is a mushball," Faith said as they turned to leave with Vito. "Yes, he is," Vito agreed, then added, "except when he isn't." As they walked back down the hall, Faith noticed a stack of boxes that hadn't been there before, and she heard Vito groan. "Looks like I'll be restocking the shelves the rest of the morning. Well, it's a job at least, and I'm able to put food on the table." Faith nodded. Thanks for letting us meet Teddy. Before we go, can I ask you one other question about him? I guess, though I'm not sure I'll be able to answer it. Where did Ivory get Teddy? Why, from Willie, of course, Vito replied. He gets all his security dogs from him. Who's Willie? Faith asks. Willie Sykes is his name. He runs the... Vito stopped abruptly. Well, let's just say he's the man to see if you need a good dog to guard your property. But where does Willie get his dogs? Faith persisted. You can tell us. After all, we're just a couple of kids. No one pays any attention to us. Well, Vito hesitated, obviously feeling uncomfortable about the direction the conversation had gone. Faith once again sent him vibrations of love and kindness, then smiled demurely. So where does Willie get the dogs? She repeated the question. Vito sighed deeply before replying. He has a business in the north part of Harlem. It's called The Ring. That's all I'm going to say about it. You're on your own from there. Faith and Midge stared at each other, and Faith gave Midge a slight nod. Thanks so much, Mr. Cox, and thanks for being willing to help, Teddy. We'll be back in touch soon. You kids take care of yourself. It's a dangerous world out there. And please, just call me Vito. Mr. Cox makes me feel old. Will do, Vito, Faith said as they turned to leave.
Okay. Thank you, Ben. That was a long segment to have to hang in there with, and I appreciate your doing so. Before we go into the next section, which may be the last section we will be able to get to today, we'll see. Again, I always like to give our special guest, Megan, an opportunity to share a little bit more about how to responsible pet ownership, and also maybe on this segment, a little bit about how to go about adopting a pet, and maybe the pros, reasons why you might want to adopt a pet rather than buying one from the pet stores.
Perfect. Thank you. I wanted to point out something really, a good point from the reading that we just heard, where Vito said he's not used to this rich food. Let's mix it with his other food. That is actually really smart of Vito. That's what we suggest when people adopt animals, is that if an animal is used to eating a specific diet and then we give them something new, their stomach can get really upset from that. And so we always say to mix their food slowly. So if you adopt an animal from us, we give you food from what they've been eating, a bag of food, and then whatever you're going to switch them to, you would use a quarter of the new food and 3/4 of the old food, and slowly transition over time to their new food so that they don't get an upset stomach from it. So that was actually a really good idea of Vito, to do that with the food and get him used to that food. So just wanted to point that out, because that's very smart. And like I said, when we adopt animals out, they come with a bag of food. So when you adopt an animal from the Blue Ridge Humane Society, we have everything that comes with them. So they get a microchip, like we talked about before. Those microchips, they always have a microchip. They are spayed or neutered, which means they can't produce any puppies or kittens. And they always get spayed or neutered before they go home. They get a bag of the food. They can get a free vet visit with the local vets in the area to get them checked up and make sure they're okay. And they get all their vaccines that they need to stay healthy. And then we have a lot of resources for pet owners, like Brad talked about from the beginning, is like when you adopt a pet from us, that's only the beginning of the relationship with us. We want to make sure that we're able to help you throughout your pet's whole life and anything that you need from us. So adoption's just that first step to come and get a pet from us, and then we'll be here to help you with the rest of it. So that's a lot of support that you get from the rescue group, from our staff, and getting us help you with anything that you need for your pet. Whereas going through a different method, you just may not get all those things for your pets. They might not already be spayed or neutered. You might have to go get vaccinations first when you get them. And so you don't really get all those things from the start. Oh, that's a cool picture. I love all your art, Millie. I saw that one. I love it. I love it. And all the animals that are up for adoption at the Blue Ridge Humane Society, they're hanging out with us till they go to their home. And so you get to come in and take them and bring them to your home and provide all these great things for them. So it's a great way to find your new pet, is to come through and adopt them from us. So, and we have right now, we're a more foster centric based adoption center. So a lot of our animals are actually in homes with foster parents. So everything's online and you can apply for an animal. And then we reach out to you and we set up a meeting. But the animals are just waiting in homes, which is really great for them. It keeps their stress level really low.
Very good. Very good.
So I'm wondering what is the cost for adopting an animal from your humane society there?
Sure. So dogs are 100. And like I said, it comes with all of those things. And we're in the middle of kitten season right now. If no one knows what kitten season is, this is the time of the year that everything starts to warm up, and we have more kittens being born kind of all over. And so we get an influx of kittens during this time. So we often run a lot of specials for kittens so that we can get them adopted out faster. So it's always good to just kind of check out our website and you'll see everything from there.
On the kitten side of thing, we live out in the country. I'm in Idaho, and I'm not sure how many cats we have at our house now, but we have several cats. They're all fixed. But my wife will see on Facebook oftentimes people looking for cats for, barn cats or whatever. And our local humane society they have a special for cats where, and it may just be just now because it is kind of cat season here too, that you can adopt a cat and it's the whole spay and neuter and everything for $20 at this point. And it's something where there are so many people who are like, I just want a cat for free. And when you think about, getting a cat for free, it's not a free thing. And by not having your cat spayed or neutered, you're contributing to that additional cat season and the amount of animals that end up needing to be put down or just aren't treated right. So I heartily encourage people to go through the Humane Society. And as much as people love kittens, when there are kittens available, but there are also so many good cats out there that can be adopted too.
Yes, I completely agree. I think once you get through that kitten phase, you kind of know the personality a little bit better of an adult cat. As the kittens, you're like, well, as you grow up, we'll see what your personality is like. But I love cats, so I love hearing this. But yeah.
Every kitten will eventually be a cat.
Yes, exactly. They'll all end up as cats. But Watson's dreaming right now. I don't know if you guys heard that noise in the background, but he's snoozing, and he is like letting out these whimpers in the middle of us talking.
Very good. Yeah, it's very good.